This has been a long break from making these gates. I think I spoke about them about 4 years ago before the fire. This is finally the last set of gates for my own property. So this is Western Red Cedar, and the reason I've chose this over oak, the other gates that I made were all oak, is basically these gates are spanning 5 meters. They're 2.5 meters each, and they're just under 2 meters tall, so they'll be so heavy. And in the past I've used Western Red Cedar, untreated, and it will go silver and grey, similar to oak, but it's just much lighter wood to hang as a gate, and much easier to machine. So and you'll see the joinery. I'm not actually doing a through tenon. I'm actually using resin, and I'm going to peg the joints as well. Totally happy with all the other gates that I made. I've had no movement. I've tried all the different methods on my own gates, and there's been no movement at all. So I'm really happy with the resin, and it saves the end of the tenon being exposed to the elements, sort of the end grain. So I quite like this. But you'll see that as we get on. Now I'm making this, there's a couple of reasons. I'm going to do some lamination now. So this first stage was basically cutting up all the stock and getting it ready for laminating. This is some excess cedar I had from a hot tub project, or a couple of hot tubs, and the dimensions aren't actually thick enough for what I need. So I'm going to laminate it, but it is actually quite nice doing this because it gives you a really strong, straight piece of cedar, because cedar's quite light, as I said. So I haven't had it twist because of the way I'm joining it, but if you do lamination like this, you're just sure to get a very, very strong vertical support. This briquette press is just amazing. Basically, at the end of, halfway through the day, I just pop out, empty the bags in, and then I've got fuel for my fires on my hot tub, and it saves me having tons of sawdust everywhere. And one of the problems with cedar is quite light, fluffy sawdust, so you end up getting quite a lot of sawdust very quickly. I'm going to do a follow-up because I did say to you guys a long while ago I was going to talk about this new spindle moulder, and I've kind of got my head around it. And the main thing about its programs and tool settings is that what you can do, as I'm doing here, is you can put your spacers in, tell the program what spacers you're using, what cutter blocks you're using, and store it. And all you need to know is the thickness of the stock. So in this case, it's 55 or 60 mil. And then you can just come back and do a cut whenever you want. And if you make a mistake, you can just put the tooling back on, hit go, and you're right back where you started. So much easier than when I did the gates before. If you go back and look at the old videos with the smaller spindle moulder that was manual, it was much, much more difficult doing these tenons with a single cutter head and an overpass to get them accurate. I'm not going to speak all the way through this video because everything you see in here I've spoke about in depth, most of the machines other than the spindle molder. So if you're really interested, ask any questions you want, obviously, or just look back through some of the videos. You'll see me showing you this mortiser in more detail. So we need to cut a rebate for the tongue of the boards on the edge and the top. So the outside boards and the top of the boards to sit into the door frame or the gate frame. And on this one you'll see, I'll show you on the next bit, I've actually done a kind of extra rebate on the top so that we've actually got somewhere to nail the top of the boards as well, so we don't just nail on the bottom because it's such a big gate. So this is where I'm cutting a 30 by 20 deep recess so that the top of the board actually sits against this rebate I'm cutting here. You'll see it in a second. And then you've obviously got to cut the groove for the tongue, which will be at the top as well. So I will actually put a tongue on this as well. I'm actually using epoxy resin for the mortise and tenons. And then I'm going to do a peg that's going to go right through so you see it as a feature as well on each, 2 pegs on each one. So there's a couple of ways. You've got to obviously get an angle on all the top surfaces for the water to run off. This can be done beforehand. In some cases it's quicker to run it through on the spindle moulder, but these are my own gates and I am a little bit against time, so I decided to just do it all with a router afterwards, just finish off the corners by hand, and it just saved marking out and stuff. It can be quicker doing it this way. Okay, so now the final stage, which is the tongue and groove boards. So this is some of the Western red cedar I had left over again, so just getting it to some dimensions, then getting on the spindle moulder and getting the T&Gs cut. Again, just a game changer, especially when you're doing projects like this where there's lots of milling and machining. This was supplied by an English company. I'll put a link in the description. International Woodworking, they're really cool. And if you're working on your own like me, literally I'm just emptying the bags into the thing. By the time I get to the next bag, it's made the briquettes and I just move on. No clearing up sawdust at the end of the day. Okay, I did say I'd do a follow-up on this spindle moulder, and I will be doing that very soon, but in essence, this is where it comes into its own. I've written a program, or a couple of programs, for this cutter block. This particular block has the tongue and the groove on it. You can see I've labelled it T&G 20mm stock, so it can cut different stock widths, but if it's 20mm dimensions, then this will be roughly centred, or will be centred. And in the past, what you'd have to do, I'd have to do all the tongues and then all the grooves and make sure, in case there was any splits, I'd have to do extra, because it was very hard to get it repeatable. Now, this sort of thing is so easy. Once you've done the program once, just label up the cutter block. Next time you come to do it, it's just a breeze. So this is cedar, as you know, local English cedar, and I've gone for 2 mil spacers, which I hope is going to be enough. It's quite a wide gate, and these T&Gs are about 150 mil. This is the first really large gate I've made out of cedar and not oak. Time will tell, but I don't think it'll expand too much anyway with the weather. I'll swing them open basically. So I ordered these custom hinges. They're really long, I think like a meter or something like that. And I'm just waiting for the hasp, which will be the padlock in the center, and fit the bolts, which I think I forgot to video. I've put the bolts in now and I forgot to video that. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm now going to apply my special finish, which is actually distilled vinegar and wire wool. You're going to see the magic happen. I was hoping to time lapse this, but you know, weather turned, so I didn't get a time lapse. But you'll see the end result. Okay, so this is the effect after about 2 hours, and obviously it's going to naturally age as well because there's no oil. This is just the vinegar which just reacts with the cedar, and then it's going to naturally age over time.